Well, let's take all the intent data, and if someone's intenting, let's just toss it over to sales and like, good luck. Right. I mean, but we didn't know what else to do with it. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's okay if, everyone out there's like, oh, that was me. Look, it was me too. So we're all in the same boat. And so we all learned, wow, the salespeople don't know what to do with it. We haven't given very discrete, if you see this, do this. So, and you have to remember that intent data is on a company level. As a company is surging on these topics, what is that? What do I do with that data? I try to get away from this is the best practice thing to do and more of this is the best practice thought exercise or framework. So for the intent, you have, a maturity scale for intent. So when you first get it, it's let's look at the data and see, the keywords you might want to just start with. There's 50 keywords and you're just going to do one cluster, right? And then you just look at number of keywords. So then you look at the data week by week, right? Because the one thing about intent data is time dependent. It's going to change this week to next week to the next week, which is a little different than, demographic data. That's not going to change. So you have to account for that time component. Also, you want to look at the spread, right, of your accounts. Like what percent of your spread is like hitting 50 keywords? Probably not a lot. Is 30? What percentage of that is 10 keywords? Is that a lot? So you're going to have to look at a couple weeks worth of data to get a feel for the volume that's coming in. And then I really like combining intent data with additional signals, right? Because intent, salespeople don't really know what to do with that. But what you could do is you can have an account that is surging for that week, add some points in addition to if someone at that account has a behavior score. So you're combining intent with an action on their part, maybe lowering the bar to get MQL, right? So if MQL is at 100 points, and they're doing something, but their account is surging, that gives them a couple points to help them bump them up a little bit. So you're effectively lowering the bar for them to MQL. That is one way to do it. Other complementary ways are, if they're a target account and they surge, then you escalate that to the salespeople with very clear signals. And again, the clearer the data, the better, like a red, yellow, green, right? You don't want you don't want to dump the raw data over to sales. You could also use the data to kind of add people to specific nurtures. And then that gets right. Then becomes the endless possibilities. Then you take your clusters and then you start sub-clustering. There's generic terms and more like competitor terms, brand terms, and then you weight the clusters a little differently. And then you can combine, and then you can start doing things like outputting a score based on weighted clusters, right? Because then you can see how the complexity can go, but you want to kind of take one step at a time, run the data and see, right? It's an experiment. You run the data and you try. Am I getting better? Are the conversion rates that my sales team is having better? Maybe you refine more, right? So there's like a kind of a path of maturity to how you would use intent data. And I think people just come in and they're just like, oh, I have intent data. Let me just plug it into my whole system. Let me shove it over to the sales team. Let me give it to marketing. But we haven't taken a step back and understand how to use that data. And on top of that, if you buy a bunch of tools, you're getting intent data from multiple sources, or you're getting demographic data from multiple sources. And what I see a lot of is we're just ingesting the whole all of the data. And we're not strategically thinking about, well, if I'm getting demographic data from 3 sources, who wins? And the not the correct answer is who's right. Because data, as marketers, we're like, oh, but this data vendor got it, wrong. This is wrong, like 2% of the time. Data is not 100%. Like no vendor is going to be 100%. You have to, assess it for your situation.